Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lineage Break podcast, a Grand Archive TCG podcast. My name is Cam. I host show. Steve also here. I'm just really not.
This is week 2, Cameron.
Week 2. I'm falling apart.
This is week 2 where you just biff the opening. You've done this for a year, Cam.
I'm out of my element. What do I say? Let's take it. Let's take it from the top. Hey, what's going on, guys?
Welcome back.
To Lineage Break, a Grand Archive TCG podcast. I'm your host, Cam.
With me, as always, is the glue.
Hi, Steven.
Hi, Cameron.
Hello. We made it.
We did it.
Whatever.
Hey,
who cares?
Right, you know?
Whatever. You're here for it.
We should just pre-record that and push a button to play it.
Yeah, and then it just plays like air horns at the end. Boing, 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 boing. Yeah.
And then,
that's perfect.
The shit.
Yeah.
Just hear him hit.
Sunday. Yeah. we can do whatever you want. Welcome back to the show.
Things that you want to do.
Well, what does that mean?
I don't know. What does that mean?
I want to play Grand Archive trading card game, an anime-inspired game with Western game design. That's what I want to play.
Look at the art. She is pretty.
Wow. They're going to use that in the commercial.
I also would like to
on Nickelodeon.
Grand Archive. I don't know about you, Cameron, but I've been in the kitchen. I've been cooking. I've been chefing.
I hear
everyone keeps focusing on like the good decks, but I'm trying to make Nico work, baby.
You have to find the next good deck, right? Yeah. A wise man once said that there are too many refiners and not enough innovators. You know,
correct.
And I think that's true, especially in MRC, where the format feels pretty open. We are now one whole ass week into MRC. We really haven't had any big tournaments, so I think this is the most exciting time for Grand Archive, where it is unclear, the sheeple, and you know who you are, that want to copy whatever the best deck is that wins Ascent.
Don't let him lie to you.
Or you want to play goddamn Glenny Boy's Merlin deck.
It's him.
They don't have anything to copy because there's no results yet.
Correct.
Taipei is not until next weekend.
So a lot of people aren't playing with new cards yet because they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, so we had Yeti Locals last week, which was our first like tournament of MRC, the first one where people have, had deck lists, and it was like I looked at the top 8 last night because I was like I like to look at deck lists to sort of see what people are playing and get a gauge for like, oh, is there a staple in this archetype that I forgot about when I was chefing up a deck,
right?
And it was just like Fire Xander, Fire Merlin, Wind Crux. Like, who are the... Come on. You know, have a little bit of fun.
Right.
Tyler was playing Tristan in this deck, I guess. Where's our Polcock decks?
Where's the Polcock deck?
Where's the Vanitas decks?
Right.
Where are people casting Diableries,
Cast your goddamn Calamity Cannons.
Even where's Sylvie,
Right.
I saw a couple of wins.
Well, Dan did Sylvie.
Umbra Tristan decks.
Oh, that's cool.
That did pretty well.
That's cool.
Starter deck Tristan, as we're going to call it, since we had to move away from the Ferrari moniker to purposefully make Jason upset. So we have to do the same and call it Starter deck Tristan, I think. But yeah, you and I, we've been cooking a little bit. So Nico, huh? That's where we're at.
That's what I've been. Well, I mean, like, obviously we have the Tristan deck that I've been playing, but like, it's because I wanted to play my girl, right? But like
Nico or Tristan, which one's your girl?
Tristan.
Where are we at?
It's always been Tristan.
Okay,
that's why I've never sat down with. Well, I did pre-MRC. I sat down with Nico at a tournament, but I haven't brought Nico to a tournament yet because she's not ready.
Right.
And Tristan is reliable.
I think Nico do be kind of chefing a little bit.
I've been doing the work. I got some new ideas. I got a fresh look on things. I'm playing too much float in my deck currently. I got to tweak a little bit of numbers. Got some new strategies that I want to try out.
Yeah, that Ravaging Finale is a good card.
Ravaging Finale is wild if it hits.
Yeah. Still, it's like a pretty good rate, right? 3 for 6.
Yeah, it's 3 for 6.
Will
never just be 6 though.
Yeah.
I've never once hit with that card for 6 because
no, I got you.
Magebane Lash is broken.
Yeah. How about Tristan? How's she feeling these days?
Tristan feels real good.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
The only played her last Friday, actually. The only deck I lost to was the Wind Crux deck.
I'll do it. Ghost Pendragon's a good one.
I will tell you, with Shadow Reaver, I got to cast Ghost of Pendragon myself.
It's a pretty good card.
And if he didn't have the Stifling Trap, it would have felt really good.
Turns out the best thing that you can do with new heroes in new advanced elements is cast Ghost of Pendragon from your opponent.
Correct.
Who would have thought?
But yeah, no, I really like Shadow Reaver. I think like taking the extra cards is really cool. There's been like a really interesting interaction with taking other people's cards that I've found. So like
some Zephyr shenanigans.
Yeah, Zephyr shenanigans. If you're playing against the mirror match and they take your stuff, you just Zephyr it back and like, get fucked, idiot.
It's cute.
It feels really nice. Unfortunately, that happens to you on reverse. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mirror's going to be cursed, I'm sure.
You cast your Ghost of Pendragons, they cast their Ghost of Pendragon again because they just Zephyr it from you.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Tristan's moving on the ye old marketplace, so I think she's going to be a popular one. I would prepare yourself for the inevitable mirror match that happens.
I think
time and time again.
I think Wind Tristan, like many of the more grindy matches, is going to be one of those matches.
Yeah, I mean, they do a good job, the Grand Archive team, of sort of designing decks in a way that makes them competitive, but is also very obviously their design path, right? Wind Tristan specifically being the Recollection version seems to be the most popular because they gave her the most tools out of the box. But I don't think that necessarily means that the other Tristan colors can't see success.
No. I think there's a very good core for a water Tristan deck that I have like brewing. It's very interesting. I like Fishing Accident a lot. I think that card is very cool.
It's cool. Doom Blades are cool.
Yeah.
So, I have a confession to make.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been a tough MRC launch week for me. I gotta be honest. Gotta be honest with you, chat.
Yeah, last week you were kind of dooming on the girl.
Well, so
this one,
your
wife.
I have some unfortunate opinions. I'm not gonna say news because there are people smarter than me, but I've put a lot of time into playing Arisana with the new cards. And granted, it's only been a couple of weeks. I understand more work can be done. And more work can be done.
And more work will be done.
More work will be done. But I find when I play card games, and I'm always happy to be wrong. So I want everything that I say to be taken with a grain of salt. This is a long speech. This is going to take us all the way to the end of the episode, Stephen.
Right. I will lean back and relax then. This is a Cam-centric episode. If you guys follow the anime that is Lineage Break,
right? Yeah, my ego doesn't allow me to not stand up on the stage. And,
his soapbox is here,
and do that. So, damn, he's on his phone already. Oh God,
you're
if I can't keep you interested, I don't know who I'm keeping interested. So, a lot of work has been done playing Cleric, Arisana specifically. She feels so much better than she used to. The addition of mostly Prima Materia and Meteor Strike has been huge. Gives her extra access to board wipes, gives her a built-in card advantage engine. However, she still falls into some very similar traps that she did before. She is very weak into aggressive decks. For the most part, her damage is finite, so she struggles into the slower controlling decks, especially stuff like Tristan that we're seeing a lot of locally and also surely globally because she's so popular. So she's felt pretty bad. She's felt bad from both sides of the table, which isn't good, especially as a community ambassador, where I, of course, like to win, and that's good for Omnidex points, and we, of course, have event packs and booster packs on the line, and, you know, I want to win event packs and booster packs. Of course, everybody does, right? So I'm usually not the throwing for skins type. I don't try to, you know, it depends. If it's a newer player, obviously I'll, you know, take an easier road and not be as cutthroat, right? But we have a pretty competitive community, and so I usually try to win. But I also want to be playing something that allows both players to have fun, win or lose, right? And the problem that I've had with Arisana in the past, but now more so in the present, is that she's really good at slowing down the game to a crawl, but she is very bad at actually finishing said game. So even though I lose, I would say probably 90% of the games that I play with that deck, my opponent has a miserable time. And I don't think that there's a way for her to have a chance to win the game if that is not the game plan, slowing the game down to a crawl, because those are the games that she has a chance to win. But I usually lose. I would say literally 9 out of 10 times. And so I feel bad because I lost, and I worked real hard to try to win, and I lost. And my opponent feels bad because I had a bad time because I just had to take 10-minute turns over and over and over again to do nothing and then pass. So right now the girl feels bad. I'm hoping that I'm wrong and somebody else figures out the sauce. I think I can come to terms with the fact that not every deck and not every champion is going to be like tier 1 competitive, and I think she is in a lot better spot than she used to be. She's probably like, you know, a tier 2, tier 3 deck that can like play the game, and you're not like the laughing stock of the community, right? She's okay, but not great, and kind of a bad play experience for everyone involved. I enjoy playing it, of course, but I understand that my opponent doesn't enjoy playing against it. So that's how we feel about Ari. Here's my confession to make, Steven. I've been playing a lot of Mage lately.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And I think what I've discovered, and I have to get out in front of it now.
That he is... Whoa. Before anything, are we losing our identity?
So.
Oh, boy.
I think it is important to be honest with you, chat, and we're making this sound like it's something actually important. I'm going to get my ukulele out and I'm going to sing a song.
This is an apology video for YouTube?
This is my apology video. It's okay to like more than one thing, right? And so I've been playing a lot of Mage lately, and I've actually been having a lot of fun. And that has been a long time going as well. I've played a lot of Arai in my time. Yeah, I enjoy playing Mage a lot.
But you never really enjoyed playing like the Fire Arai. It's always been more of the control weird Arai stuff.
Yeah, I'm not so much a arcane combo player. I do enjoy it, but it's not a deck that I like to play casually because it's a combo deck, right? So like the whole idea is to not interact with your opponent until they die. And it's that same thing where your opponent doesn't have a great experience, so I try not to do that at the local level. And I've done it like sparingly at bigger events. But I've been really enjoying playing Mage, and I think what I've discovered is that I took a look at the class, the dual class cards last night, and I feel like that might just be where I've been the whole time, is... the cleric / mage portion of the card pool is, I think, the one that I like the most.
I would agree with you.
And so that's neat that I've sort of backhand realized how much I enjoy the mage class, because they've been sort of locked into Rye for the first year of the game, and that deck, like you said, the arcane Rye deck, it feels very differently from how I like the things that I like about Mage.
Right.
And so this past week I've been playing a lot of Water Rye with Naya and Frost Shard, both being cards that we got in
Frost Shard's wild.
MRC, and they're both like super, super good. And I really like that spells that gain you value sort of strategy, and that's what both of those are doing. And you get to play a sort of, you know, mid-range.
What is the stipulation to cross Frost Shard out of the graveyard?
You have to have leveled up this turn, and it is Mage class bonus.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've really been enjoying playing that sort of like tempo, mid-range Rye deck. Spells matter, but I'm not trying to like combo kill you. Spells matter. It's been really fun. And so I'm excited for the future of Mage. Obviously, I'm very excited for the future of Cleric, but right now Ari is feeling a little bit sad on a couple of angles. So not saying I'm putting the girl away. I've already bought most of my playset of Prima Materia CSRs. So like don't get it twisted, chat. You know, we're still here for my girl, but I'm just saying I'm maybe enjoying some other avenues as well. So that's my apology. I'm sorry. I'm also playing Mage.
Well,
I'm canceled.
With that being said.
Right. Where did I put my drink? Oh, it's all the way over there.
Yeah. Oh. With that being said, that brings us to, I think, a good segue for our next topic, which is Mortal Ambitions, set 5. Do you think one of the new champions we will receive in Mortal Ambitions will be a mage?
So, everything is hopium, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. I think that one of the coolest things about Alchemical Revolution, and we'll say we got to start. We're Magic players, by the way. We've played Magic for a long time. We're no longer Magic players. We're retired Magic players. I got to start referring to Grand Archive in blocks. I think is a lot easier. So one of the cool things about Azoth as a block is that I think the champions that they introduced in Azoth are way more individual than the champions that they released in Camelot, with the exception of, I think, exactly Rye. But that's sort of a Rye issue. Where the champions in ALC and Rye have an identity, and their identity is very clear, and it is hard for them to leave their identity. That being Ari being the alchemist and being very gather focused. I think one of the issues that I have with Arisana is that her level 3s feel very disconnected from her level 1 and level 2 lineage, because she cares all about these herbs and gathering, and then level 3 she just doesn't give a shit anymore. But that is sort of what they've built her into, is you want to be a gather deck or a star calling deck, one or the other, but you can't really play a mid-range game or both or whatever, right? Diana, the same thing, is obviously very gun bullet focused. You're not playing Diana without guns and bullets. It would be ridiculous. Her entire identity is about shooting with guns and bullets. Tony is a little bit more open, but I think that's more of a Guardian thing than it is a Tenoris thing. And then Rye, I think, is just maybe not powerful enough to do anything other than lean into his arcane stuff, because his arcane stuff is extremely powerful, but his level 1 and his level 2 are a little bit on the weaker side. So he gets to lean into his very powerful arcane pool, but it's difficult for him to lean into not that. But the cool thing about that, and the cool thing about Grand Archive, is that I think it is cool to make an individualized champion within a wider class pool. And so I hope that we continue to see that as we go to Mortal Ambition. Maybe they'll give me the name of that world sometime soon so I can refer to it that way. But so I think it would be cool to get champions for classes that have their own identity. I very much think of, Ari as the alchemist, Diana as the gun ranger, that have this sort of identity that is very separate from what came before them. Because this is the first time we're going to get full lineages
of new characters
of champions in an existing class.
Right.
Where sure, we got lineage breaks, and I guess we sort of got Merlin as the first true, second to level 3 lineage, but a true 1 to 3 lineage. I guess Tristan now as well. but that exists in a class that already
Exists.
has a champion pool. And before we talk too much about Mortal Ambition, I think that Tristan is a great example of this. If you look at Tristan compared to Xander, at the early game they do feel a little bit similar, like T1 and Z1 feel fairly similar, but they go very divergent paths, which I think is cool, and that's what you want from a class pool, is you want to have multiple options. Right. You want to be like, I am a mage player, but there is 4 different mages and they all play very differently. You don't want them all to just be flavors of each other. And so I think they did a really good job setting that up with Azoth, and I hope that into Mortal Ambition they do that. So, that big old spiel out of the way. Yes, I hope that mage gets a champion in this block, because, like I said, I think Rye feels a little bit constrained, and I think personally the coolest thing out of MRC is the expansion. It's a smaller set, and it's hard to do like full-on class expansions, but it does feel like they purposefully expanded Water Mage into its own sort of archetype with several cards that they printed in MRC, and I think that was deliberate. Like, I don't think I'm cooking too hard by putting Naya and Frostshard into a tempo Rye deck, because I think that was the intended design. And so my hope is that Rye is doing his best, and you'll see later tonight when I play it. But I think it would be very cool if there was a mage that fit that sort of spells matter, value-oriented plan. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Very good.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of your Rye deck.
Thank you. I think it's very neat.
Yeah.
It does some cool things. How about you, Steven? So we talked a little bit about this last week, but we will, I think we're going to spend a good portion of today talking about Mortal Ambition. I know MRC just came out, and we're very excited for MRC, and we're really loving it. But of course, we always got to be looking to the future and think about the implications that MRC has made on the wider format. I think that we always say some sort of this changes everything, clickbait, the thumbnail, whatever. We'll make that the thumbnail. This changes everything.
What?
But I think post-MRC, the game feels like we have completed. This is our second world that we're going to, but it feels like we've completed the first arc of Grand Archive to me. We've gotten all 7 classes. They've all gotten full support. We've completed 2 separate worlds, and so it feels like if we were to separate Grand Archive into chunks, and we might do that 10 years down the road, this will be the first chunk, right? This will be the 93-94 old school format. And so I think looking at the implications that this makes for the future is very interesting, especially when we go into Mortal Ambition. So we don't know a whole lot about Mortal Ambition. Once again, we'll pop up the art that we saw at the keynote. All we have is this, right? Is we have some pieces of art and some implications on what that means.
Yeah, but we also know that all 7 classes are being supported.
Right. So all 7 classes will be supported, but a bit of a red herring. Obviously, MRC, a great example. All 7 classes are supported, and like I said today, I'm really moving with the mage pool, which is not an intended like large chunk of the set.
Right.
But it does have to be said that there will assumingly be 3-4 new champions in Mortal Ambition, and those classes will be supported more than the other 3 or 4. And so I think it's interesting to discuss. We have some art, like we said, and we could look super deeply into that and be like, oh, well, these cards are indicative of certain classes, and that means that Grand Archive is trying to tell us that those are the classes that are going to get new lineages. That might not be true, Stephen. So I think maybe it is a better idea to discuss Mortal Ambition in the hopes and dreams sense, like what do we want, but also maybe what does Grand Archive need? Are there certain classes that we think need a second lineage more than others, et cetera, et cetera. So I think my first pick, so you can start brewing in your brain. is Mage. I think Mage is a shoo-in. I think it would be really cool to get a Mage class or a Mage champion that has an identity separate from Rise. Rai is still a spells deck, and he is like an Enlightenment counter spells deck, but he, at his core, I think, is designed to be this like efficiency, levels matter deck. And I think it would be cool to have a Mage that is still spells matter, because that is the Mage sort of mantra, but in a different way to sort of increment you some value. We get that a little bit with Ryark Mage, his level 2, but I think it would be cool to get maybe some flashback stuff. Maybe Frost Shard is indicative of future design, and you get a way to play spells out of your graveyard.
That's very cool. Yeah. That'd be very cool to add to the game. So I think where I'd want to be, right, is like I'm trying to think of things that would that have felt weak in the past. And one that comes to mind is Tamer. I think Sylvie's Lineage is all right. I think she does some things fine. I think that a Tamer that not necessarily shuts off Pride, but maybe reduces Pride cost on cards.
Interesting.
Would be very helpful, because there's a lot of Pride. There's a lot of cards that we have currently that are Pride, but they're so astronomically high that like you have to have all these bits, and you have to materialize and spend all your early turns materializing all these cards so you can turn on your ape. And then you're dead because you've turned on your ape, and you've done nothing else in the game. So I think I'd like to see a new Tamer class. I think I'd like to see it, and I know, and we just got the new Sylvie slime stuff, but that seems contained, right? Like, it's not a Tamer class, right? Like the slime stuff, that's Slime Sylvie. That's just her. I'd like to see a new Tamer who manipulates levels a little bit easier,
right?
Where their level 1s and level 2s affect Pride to make some of these powerful cards that we have access to seem playable.
Yeah, I think it's Tamer. It's interesting to talk about Grand Archive classes as we see them, and I know that some of the developers watch the show, and I hope that they find our insight interesting. Where I assume that the picture that the developers have of the classes in their mind is very different than ours. But I think it is important for us as the consumer of the product to identify what the class-like themes feel like. And maybe those are completely wrong, and they're like, why would you think that Mage is a spells deck, right?
Right.
But Tamer's a tough one, because Tamer is, I think, one of the more clear class identities, around animals and beasts, one or the other, but ally-based, a sort of board-based deck, right? And both of the Sylvies they incentivize you to go wide and keep a big board and have a larger board than your opponent. But I agree that I think it would be cool to see them sort of flip that on its head and be a sort of go tall deck rather than a go wide deck, where, something like reduction of Pride abilities allows you to, instead of playing, little squirrels and slimes and, drawing cards because you have multiple on board, stuff like that. I think it would be cool to leverage big overstated allies, but that have a restrictive Pride cost that you get, some agency to reduce.
Right.
Would be very cool. So yeah, I think that is a great way to look at it, and I hope that's what the panda card is.
Right.
Make the panda's Pride a little bit smaller so that you can control the literal bear.
Yeah.
Is pretty cool. Not an ordinary bear, a bear with white fur and
correct. Black spots. I
think past those is where it gets difficult.
Correct. I'm also having a kind of a tough time, because the one in my head, I don't think needs the support.
My first bet pre-MRC would have been Assassin. I think that Xander was sort of only really functioning as one sort of deck, or I guess Luxem was only functioning as one sort of deck, and then Xander was able to take that like sort of aggro approach, but I would have said that it would be nice to get an Assassin that plays very differently from Xander. Like we said, Tristan in the early levels feels a little bit similar, but she really goes divergent as she hits her Umbra card pool, so I think they did a good job of expanding Assassin. We got a lot of Assassin support, and I think that maybe the Assassin support was indicative of there not being Assassin coming in Mortal Ambition. Like, even though Sylvie and Tristan both got a Recollection deck, if you look at the Recollection deck and MRC as a whole together, the Assassin support is much wider than the Tamer support. There's not a whole lot of Tamer cards in MRC proper. There's only a couple. So, yeah, like you said, I think Sylvie feels very self-contained with her slime package, which allows them to sort of expand the Tamer pool in Mortal Ambition. So not Assassin, but one that I think, moving back to something I said about a ALC would be cool, is a new Ranger. Even though we just got one, so I'm trying to like put aside the recency bias, right? I'm trying to think of the classes as all getting their first iteration, and then we put that in a box and we put it aside. They've all had their first iteration. Doesn't matter when they came out, because no matter what, if you're like, well, the new Ranger, Guardian, Cleric just came out, that means this set should be the DOA classes, and then you'll just follow that pattern forever, right? So they got to break that pattern at some point. So I think the cool thing about Diana is that she is a very insular sort of strategy. Like, I think that a lot of the things that Diana does don't necessarily have wider implications for a different Ranger. She has two things, right? She has the ranged keyword that could have implications for additional Rangers, and she is a gun deck. The gun thing, assumingly, will be put aside in a box, and we won't deal with guns or bullets or whatever. That'll just be a Diana thing. And even the distant ranged thing could be something that they can put away for some time and leave that with Diana alone. Something that is cool that we haven't really seen, and this is something that I hope we see in Mortal Ambition, is in DOA and FTC was when we got our first introduction of multi-class cards, and a lot of those multi-class cards have implications for classes at that time that we hadn't seen yet. So in Ranger, preparation counters are something that Ranger has access to, and stuff like Mark the Target. And so I think it would be cool to not only have a Ranger that deals with some of those older mechanics like preparation counters, especially now that we've gotten a little bit more preparation counter support with MRC, but also one of the coolest cards, I think, for the Ranger class is Seeking Shot, which is something that we got in FTC, which is an arrow card, which sort of indicates a similar design pattern as the gun bullet thing, but with these arrows that you don't necessarily have to have a weapon, right? Like bullets you cannot use without a gun, arrows you can use, like Seeking Shot, without some sort of bow. So I think it would be cool to have a like Aragorn type Ranger that is like bow and sword, and you don't necessarily need to be entirely weapon based, but maybe a bow is a material deck card that gives you bonuses when you play arrows, but not necessarily a necessity to do so. So I think that would be cool. Preparation counters, arrows. I've always liked Ranger as that sort of like D&D Ranger, not like literally a bowman or literally a sniper, but like Ranger as, like a hunter, a tracker, sort of, wilderness type person. So
I could see that.
Yeah, so I think that would be cool.
I think that would also fit very well into
that sort of Three Kingdoms.
Three Kingdoms vibe. Have like a tamer, tamer base, and then you have the Ranger that hunts the tamer stuff.
Yeah. I'm hunting pandas.
And then the mage is just they like have like a dome or something over their city, so they neither can mess with them.
I like we're gonna have Clayton That's what I'm saying. Clayton's the new ranger. Hunting
Not
gorilla.
Clayton.
Not Clayton.
Not Clayton.
We're gonna be hunting panda bears. That's,
God.
That's our new ranger.
No, we're hunting gorillas.
They're awesome. Take us there. Take us to the gorillas. Yeah. We're not doing that.
Kurtik, please.
But yeah, so I think a new ranger would be really cool. I don't think, if we're really like reading into, as we were and have been since we've seen them, if we're really reading into that art that we received, I don't think that any of those cards are indicative of a ranger. But like we said, maybe they just chose cool art because they like cool art. Who knows?
Maybe they're just like, pick one of these cards. These are the only ones we've done so far.
Right. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, art is a real stopgap, right? Yeah. So like, we don't know how much of the art they have planned, and yeah, like you said,
we don't know how far in production of the set they are.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the arts that they chose, I mean, I assume that all of the arts in the set will be very flavorfully designed for the setting, but the arts that they chose very much are. Right. So there is a possibility they're like, these are the ones that represent the flavor of the world the best, because they are, very, very flavorful in their design. But I assume, knowing Grand Archive, that they're all going to be like that. So, they do a really good job of making things fit within the world that they take place in.
Right.
But also feeling, like that Grand Archive vibe. All right. So, Steven, that's 3 down. You got another one?
Oh, we think of a 4th one.
Maybe.
Oh.
It is just as likely, right, that we have a 4th class as we have a 3rd class, as we are currently 50-50 on main sets.
That's fine. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, like I said, there's one that I have on my mind, and it is indicative of one of the cards that we've seen, one of the arts we've seen. But I don't think it's time for this particular class to get a new lineage, because they have a lot already, and that would be Warrior. Because I feel like Lorraine is such a strong champion that it would be really hard to replace her just yet, along with a lot of what Lorraine does.
Right.
However, it would be interesting to see where they would take Warrior with a new lineage.
Yeah, I think the thing that I come to first, as a Flesh and Blood player, is the Warrior identity to me in Grand Archive and in Flesh and Blood feels very similar. And I think I agree, one of the issues that Lorraine has is main character syndrome, in that she does everything. She's sort of like, is pretty good at doing most facets of the game because she's the main character and they've given her a lot of support. And I think Warrior, at least currently in Grand Archive, now with the addition of Guardian as well, but I think are sort of meant to be the jumping off point classes that are like sort of wide and can do whatever you want and don't punish you for deck building choices as badly, and are a great, sort of jack of all trades. But I think the intent around Lorraine flavorfully and Warrior is that they are weapon-based, and that's the same way that it works in Fab. But Lorraine, very specifically, has always been a sword-based character. All of her abilities care about swords. Her level 1 cares about swords. Her level 3 cares about swords. Her other level 3 sort of cares about swords, and like Spirit Blade and Soul cares about swords. How many times can I say swords?
Sword?
So I think it would be cool, and it's not something that we currently have, but obviously it's a very easy design space to enter, is if the next Warrior was a different weapon based. And so I think one of the cool things that we saw in the preview art for Mortal Ambition is that like large glaive weapon that is in the top right hand corner, which assumingly is a regalia and a weapon. And I think it would be cool if the Warrior new flavor is not so much swords, but like, two-handed pole arms and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah. So they give it a different sort of flavor. They do more damage. Think like, so sort of like Bulwark sword adjacent, right? Like bigger number, some sort of drawback, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe this Warrior gets rid of that drawback. But even then, something that I find very interesting is that even in Guardian, which is also like to an extent a weapon-based class. Less so than warrior, but still weapon-based. They have sort of parallels in that way. All of the weapons for Tenoris are still swords. They're just bigger swords.
That's true.
So we really haven't explored anything like, pole arms or axes or spears or any of these,
axe,
like two-handed axe, like great axe, sick. Big smashy warrior stuff. So I think that would be really cool. And that is something that we sort of see in Flesh and Blood as well, that warrior is always weapon-based, but each warrior has a sort of flavor of weapon that they maintain.
Yeah, that'd be very cool, actually.
Yeah. Somebody says in chat to give a duelist warrior, which I think would be cool as well. A sort of, like fencer, quick, stabby person would be sweet. So yeah, I assume we're all assuming everything.
This is just an assumption.
That warrior is supposed to be that sort of weapon-based class, and so I think it would be cool to see an exploration of different weapon types for a new lineage.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
Yeah, I think these are all very reasonable takes.
And you guys know our saying here. Lineage Break's never wrong.
It's true.
We've never been wrong.
I don't know, man. I'm feeling kind of confident about this. I feel like these are all like pretty reasonable things that could all be happening.
Yeah, but we've also never been wrong, so it makes sense.
I know that like Silidar sitting somewhere in Texas, just angst face. What did they know? Who leaked?
Just deleting things.
Delete. Move it back. We'll do that in a year from now. Yeah, I think those would all be pretty cool. I think that the Ranger is probably the most far-fetched. So
yeah.
But I think the others are pretty reasonable, and I do hope that we see that. And if that is not the case, right? And we think the Tamer is pretty evident. This new warrior theory I think seems pretty solid. I think the mage thing is also pretty reasonable. If we take those as the things that we're the most confident about, that does lead back to maybe this is what they were trying to show us with this Mortal Ambition art, and that leaves the last class to be Guardian, which I think is pretty clear. What that water card is the Guardian card.
Unless they just give us Tamer, Mage, Warrior.
Perhaps, yeah.
And then, obviously, that they could have just showed the...
Right, yeah, because that card will be in the set and will be a Guardian card, but that doesn't indicate that there's going to be a whole new Guardian champion.
A shield-based Warrior.
Ooh, interesting. I think that would be odd. It sort of feels like a little bit, parasitic with like the Guardian identity. But what do we know?
Right, well, there's a lot of Warrior Guardian bonus cards.
Yeah. So something that I don't know if you've taken a look at, sort of an anecdote, is when I discovered that I'm a poser and enjoy playing Mage. I realized that at least currently, there are certain class pairings that are like way more common than others, and every class sort of like has a couple of outliers. So I was looking at Cleric Mage specifically, and like Mage is almost exclusively Cleric Mage cards, with a couple of exceptions. They have one Assassin card, one Warrior card, one Tamer card, I believe. As dual class. So do you think that that's sort of just how how it's shaken out over the past year, or do you think that this is sort of like a ally enemy sort of thing where we'll see these pairings more often going forward in perpetuity, or if this just happened to be how the flavor lined up for these cards?
That's a good question.
Like, is Cleric Mage an allied pairing that we're going to see a lot going forward, or did it just happen that we got a lot of Cleric Mage cards in these first couple of sets?
That's interesting. I don't know, because if this is true, correct, right, and it's not a fluke,
right,
that means that the Ranger Assassin identity with the prep counters and being on a Ranger makes a lot more sense,
right?
Because there are cards like Seeking Shot and cards like Gawain, where these are Ranger Assassin cards that have that sort of similar feel,
right?
Where like they kind of feel like both classes, but
right.
not either exactly. And I would be hard pressed to want to disagree that the choices of the pairings were random,
right?
Like,
yeah,
not with some intent behind it.
I do think that they feel like I said, I'm using the. We always have to explain our references here because I never want to leave you guys in the dark. Where in Magic the Gathering, the grandfather of trading card games, there are certain color pairings that are considered allied pairings that appear much more often because they have sort of similar goals and similar feels to them. And then there are enemy colors that are exactly opposed. So when they have dual cards, they're supposed to be that sort of like yin and yang, but they don't happen as often. And I do think that the class pairings that we've seen in DOA, FTC, MRC, whatever, are those sort of ally pairings that make a lot of sense. Like Cleric and Mage having a very similar, spells and enlightenment and all of these very similar themes. Warrior, Guardian, very obviously, weapon-based and ally-based and about protecting your allies and attacking with weapons. And then Ranger and Assassin about, subverting your opponent and manipulating their cards and manipulating your own cards and preparation counters and stuff like that. So I think that those 6 pairings, or those 3 pairings of 6 classes, make the most sense. And then the thing that I've seen from Tamer, which is cool, is that Tamer has way more pairings across the board. So they're sort of the Tamer flavor fits into everything, which makes sense, right? If Tamer is the animal beast class, surely all of the rest of the classes can have an animal or beast that is associated with them. We see that on like Owl Familiar, like is a mage flavored animal. And we see a lot of like cleric crossover as well. So I think that would be cool if we have those 3 pairings and then Tamer is the one that sort of, is the jack of all trades and fits a little bit into everybody.
Yeah.
Should be neat.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Think that is cool. But maybe that's the easiest one to write, right? Like when you're first creating the set, of course, you like shoot from the hip and you're like,
right,
these are the things that'll hit the widest audience and establish these classes the best, right? And so these are probably the easiest ones to do because, like we said, the flavor fits so closely together. So we'll see. Maybe, the next set is all warrior assassin. Who knows?
Wild.
Class cards. Do you think, asks Richie in the chat, that we get new advanced elements in Mortal Ambition?
So originally in Kickstarter there was 10.
I believe so.
If we were going to get new advanced elements, I think this would be the set to do it.
Yeah.
I think the first sets would have to establish everything, right? In the first set we got our mage, our warrior, our tamer, our assassin, then we got the ranger, the guardian, and the cleric.
Right.
And those are our only classes that we're getting.
Right.
Each of them have their own element or advanced element. If we were to get new advanced elements, I would think this would be the time to say, here's your new advanced elements.
Right. Yeah, I think something that is interesting about that. I don't have him quoted, and I'm sure he hates it when I do this, but just like things that I've heard Silidar say. The way that they talk about the classes is very different. Like in passing, we read way too much into things. That's sort of our job. But the way that they talk about classes in passing is very different from the way that they talk about elements. So we don't have a confirmation that there's additional advanced elements, but they always, it feels to me when they talk about them, leave that door open where it seems very clear that this is the 7 classes and that we are not getting additional classes. But the advanced elements, we had Silidar talk a little bit on the anniversary stream about like the ley lines of each world, made it seem sort of open to there being however many advanced elements. And something that is interesting design-wise with the game being so small is that I do worry about not only expanding the card pool of any of the existing elements, but allowing a new class, assumingly, if they repeat an element, it will be for a different class. Allowing a new class into an advanced element can be very frightening. We saw this with Merlin, right? It's our number one example, allowing Merlin into the Crux pool. And we'll see what the implications of allowing Tristan into the Umbra pool will be But I think the best way to do it is to focus on the advanced elements that are sort of insular, that if you like put a new class into Luxem, they're not really going to be able to leverage those abilities of like Lightweaver's Assault and Luxem Sight unless they're designed to, right? Like Luxem Sight is not going to make it into a deck that doesn't reveal cards, right? It's just a 0-mana draw card.
But I do worry about cards like Excalibur.
Yeah.
Like if you print a Luxem Warrior,
right,
that card is bonkers.
Right, I agree. So I think that we will probably revisit a couple of classes, or a couple of elements rather. My assumption would be like maybe 1 returning element, 2 new ones would be a pretty healthy way to do it. Or maybe 2 and 1 is still fine, 2 returning, one new element. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a new one. I think it would be kind of, I don't want to say strange, but I think that I would be surprised if it was 3 returning elements, just because that sort of unfairly manipulates the card pool currently, assuming that any amount of these advanced element cards are good and without class bonus. It sort of gives a unfair boost to certain advanced elements rather than others. And I think that that's something that feels a lot safer the farther we get down the line. Like the bigger the general card pool is, the less punishing it is to, like, you know, give Crux a new staple card. Where right now giving Crux a new staple card would be pretty dangerous. Right. But, you know, a few sets down the line when the card pool is much bigger, it feels, you know, a little bit less impactful when you give a direct boost to some older champion archetypes.
Yeah.
So I hope we get new ones. I think that would be cool. I think the advanced elements are by far the coolest part of the game, and the flavor that they bring is just really, really sick.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would be totally happy with a 7-class game and then, you know, however many advanced elements, because they're all so specific and insular, you know.
One of the things that I hope for is that the Mecha advanced class still exists down the line.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that became Neos.
It's a bit of a weird one, right? Where, you know, maybe not, because Neos like has that mecha, or I think it was Tekka actually in Kickstarter, but has that sort of Tekka flavor, right? But I don't know if that is because Neos is what Tekka became, but Neos is like the element of creation, and so in Azoth, that's what creation looks like, right? It takes on that automaton robot feel, but is that because this is what Tekka became, or is that just because this is what Neos looks like in a place like Azoth, right? Where obviously if you're creating things in the automaton-centric world, you're going to be creating automatons. So maybe that is just the, you know, sort of Neos flavor in this place rather than being the Tekka thing directly, where, you know, I know exactly what you want. Maybe some down the line we get Gundam Allen.
Yeah.
You know,
Tekka
Gundam Allen.
I would love big robots.
Yeah.
That's just saying, you know, give me tamer robots. That's fine.
Tamer robots would be actually really cool. We got a couple of those in MRC.
Yeah, I know. You're giving me a taste.
Yeah.
I want more.
That would be cool.
Print more Mark IIIs.
Evangelion, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were going to give, this is a can of worms, but if you were going to give, you know, an Ava a ally type, to me it would be Beast. You know? So that's all I'm saying.
Correct. Backdoor code, unleash the beast.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
I think they would be beasts. So that would be pretty sweet.
I agree.
Maybe someday, Stephen. If you ask the lovely people in Houston enough times, maybe they will bless you.
Ban me forever.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we're not doing the Evas. I'm like, all right.
Get that Evangelion crossover. How much you think you got to pay? Who owns that now? I don't even know who owns that. Right? Because Gynax went out of business.
Right. And Gynax became Trigger?
Well, sort of. Like a bunch of the people that worked at Gynax now work at Trigger. But I don't think it would like literally became Trigger. I think just Gynax closed and a bunch of those people made Trigger.
Does that mean that
who owns Evangelion? It's the publisher, right?
Is it just Anno?
No.
Does Zeke Anno just own his own thing?
No way. It's whoever who was the publisher of
Amniplex?
Yeah. It might be Aniplex. I don't remember. We'll look that up. Evangelion would be cool. I assume it's $1 million for that license. Though,
I
so.
try. Who knows?
We don't blame you.
Who knows?
Weebs of the Shore. You do what you need to. All right. Well, I think that's just about all that we have for today. I said before the start of the show that I have not edited last week's show yet, so we're going to end the show so I can go edit the show so you guys can see the show. Do you guys like the show?
Yeah,
like
it's a good
big show.
Big show?
Yeah.
I am the show, the big bad show.
Yeah.
Oh no,
that
that's
one.
the dog. That's dog.
No, that is the dog the bounty hunter. Yeah.
What is Big Show's theme?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
All right. Well, hey, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed our little rant about Mortal Ambition. Next week we might have some. I think next week is right before Taipei, so we'll probably be talking about some Ascent Taipei. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk more about how.
Or actually, Taipei, right? Ahead of us, correct? Taipei like 12 hours ahead of us? That is how it works when you move that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Taipei might actually be happening on the day that we record the podcast next week.
We might just Taipei live, baby.
Maybe we're watching Taipei. I don't know if they're doing any like streams or whatever.
But if they are, we might watch it live.
But yeah, thank you guys for watching. We will be back. I hope you enjoyed our Mortal Ambition talk. I hope you guys are enjoying Mercurial Heart. And, playing all that good Grand Archive. We are very excited.
Just remember, we love you.
We do love you. I do got to do the spiel, but that was a good way to. You were going to stand up and.
I was going to stand
up and leave. You can stand up and walk away.
No. Use the spiel.
So you can catch us every week, Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live here shooting the podcast. You get the exclusive before and after rigmarole of us talking about basically nothing. You got a whole spiel about Kingdom Hearts at the top of today's show from Steve, so you missed that if you're watching the show on YouTube. If you do want to watch the show on YouTube, you can find the previous week's episode every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, provided that me or our editor edits it, but this one is definitely my fault, so I'm going to edit it, and it will be out today, I promise. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you next week.
Have a good one, guys.
And remember, Steve loves you.
Woo!
Woo.